All right, so we'll kick things off with our January roundtable. I see lots of people on. We had about 100 people register for this, which was awesome to see. I'll hand it over to Mark, who is our coordinator, MC, and everything to kick us off.
Thanks, Jimmy. Can everyone see my screen? It says Hatz AI Partner Roundtable. Cool.
Got it.
All right. So we are going to get things started today. Just a couple housekeeping things at the beginning. We have a few special guests today. We'll introduce those one at a time. And then we're going to go through some partner resource updates. JP will talk about some go-to-market resources for you. And then the bulk of the time we want to spend with Jimmy talking about the future of Hats, some roadmaps, some updates, and open it up to Q&A. I know we've already had a couple questions about DeepSeek, but lots of other things that we have on the roadmap besides just new models. So that's sort of the format for today. So I want to go ahead and get started by introducing our partner spotlight, which is um, Milton Bartley, co-founder, president, and CEO of ImageQuest. And Jimmy and Milton will be having a conversation about ImageQuest's AI journey and how Milton has adopted AI into ImageQuest. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great. You want to stop sharing the screen there, Mark?
There
Great.
we go.
Milton, such a pleasure. It's been great to get to know you over the past year. I'd like to start off by giving you a moment to introduce yourself and your company and all of the great work that you've done to get where you are today.
Thank you for that. So as Jimmy said, Milton Bartley, I'm the CEO of ImageQuest. We're based in Nashville, Tennessee, 18-year-old MSP. We have pivoted twice, major pivots, since our inception in 2007 to land where we are today. We're 75% of our business is traditional MSP, the way most of the folks on this call would recognize, and 25% is what we call advisory services, where we do very specific compliance and regulatory work for financial services companies, mostly community banks, but some trust companies, insurance companies, some SEC work for RIAs and other things like that. So that's the fastest growing piece of our business. And interestingly, one of the most I find disruptive places where we're using some of the Hatz tools and some of the AI work that we've put here at ImageQuest. I met Jimmy a year ago in a cigar bar. Neither of us smoke cigars, but we happened to be in a cigar bar for an event. I got to see a live demo of what the Hatz dream was at that moment in time, 2 months into the company's existence. I pulled him aside the next morning and said, "Hey, we gotta figure out how to get this at ImageQuest," and we've been on the Hatz train ever since. So we'll get into what that looks like, but that's the high level of who we are.
Yeah, no, thank you. You built a wonderful business for yourself. I love your specialty, and your team's been very professional and very skilled to work with. So major kudos to you, and also major kudos for pulling me aside early last year, and just being like, look, I see where this is going, and like we got to figure out how to do it and adopt it. And here we are a year later, and you've already put the work in and prepared your team, and are ready to take this to the next level. But let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about like your perspective on AI, why you spent time adopting AI for the past year before really going in and um I guess just over the past year, like why you spent time adopting it, and where you think it's going over the next year.
Yeah, great question. So I have probably a couple superpowers, minor superpowers personally, and one of those is I'm really good at surrounding myself with smart people that are smarter than me and can figure things out. And then my second superpower is I think I'm good at looking around the corner and seeing what's coming. Doesn't mean I can always be prepared for it or implement it appropriately, but I've been harping on my team to figure out how to implement. We're going to implement AI. I've been harping on this literally since 2020. We've got to figure this out. And then we get in a meeting room, and the team looks at me and goes, "Well, figure what out? What do you want us to do?" And I'm like, "Figure out AI, right?" So I mean, we never had any traction because it was just this dream, this pipe dream. And then I met Jimmy. I got to see and hear the live demo. And I mean, frankly, what sold me was he walked around with his little speaker and he made a phone call and he talked to this thing and I talked back to him. And I'm like, okay, we're going to get this thing rolling. So that's what hooked me. But the other piece was when I brought it back to the company, we were at a maturity as an organization where it didn't fall on deaf ears at that point. So last April, when I sat down with my team and I said, okay, I've been saying let's implement AI for 4 years. Now I actually have something we can implement. Here's what it's going to look like. We're going to do one of two things. We're either going to figure out how to leverage artificial intelligence to be more efficient and serve our customers faster and better, or somebody else is going to figure it out and we're going to lose our customers to that somebody else. That's essentially what I told my team. I said, that doesn't mean that we don't have deep pockets like an IBM or an Amazon to go invest hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to do this, but we don't need to do that now. One of the things, and Ethan Mollick that I also learned through Jimmy, he always said is, hey, one of the great equalizers of these large language models is that the young man living on the streets in Mumbai, Africa, has the exact same access to the LLMs for $20 a month as Goldman Sachs has. And it is a great equalizer. And so we don't have to make those investments because Hatz is making those investments for us. And so our investment is to jump on the Hatz train and then leverage these tools. And we'll talk how we're leveraging those tools in a minute. But anyway, so I got 50 people at ImageQuest in a room, and I got 50 people to get as excited about it as I was. And that really was the game changer.
So I want to talk about three more things. One, going from you're excited, you're the owner of the MSP, you see the future, you see around the corner, you're like, AI is the thing. And then, getting the other 50 people excited and getting them on board with the same thing. I know that's not like a, announcement one day and then everybody's like, okay, right? Like people have lots of questions, they want to know what to do. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how you're using it internally, and then I want to talk about how you are piloting, deploying, and planning to deploy to customers. So any order, your choice. Those are my last three things.
Well, I'll take the first one first. So I'm a big believer in, I'm a use case guy, and I didn't even use that term 2 years ago, but I hired a guy that's former software developer for years, and his whole world is around use case, use case, use case. And it's beating into my head, use case. So how I got 50 people excited wasn't to get them in a room and say, here's a whiteboard, here's a pipe dream. I literally showed them how we could use this tool to be more effective right now. So we took 4 or 5 things we were doing at ImageQuest that were very labor intensive, and we used the Hatz tool to make those less labor intensive and more intuitive so that we could push that work, that high level work, down to a lower level employee and empower that lower level employee. And so we did that with a couple of things. One was a health check process, and it took us weeks to develop it, months probably to get it right, where we were looking at Arctic Wolf reports and all these other reports on a monthly basis to create this executive summary dashboard for our customers. And we were pulling data from all these different sources. And we taught Hatz how to do that for us. And now one of our lower level analysts can just literally drag and drop these reports in and hit generate on the app, and out comes the pretty beautiful output that we then use to turn into our executive summary. So in reality, we took a labor-intensive task that we knew took 6 to 8 hours per customer per month for our advisory team, and we reduced that labor down to 90 minutes per customer. Wow. And so that was the first thing we showed people. And then we gave people access to the tool. So instead of saying, hey, here's 5 people, we gave everybody at ImageQuest access to the Hatz tool. And we encouraged people to use it to figure stuff out. And then we had a meeting every month. We still have it. And it's a open meeting, but you don't have to come. But we get 25 to 40 people a month that show up 45 minutes and talk about how they're using the tool, what they figured out, what they're doing. Oh, I built this app. Oh, hey, we built this Ask HR app. We put all of our HR manuals, our policy handbook, our security policies, our payroll calendar. We put all this stuff into an app behind the scenes using the Hatz tool. And then the only box is Ask HR a question. And you literally ask whatever question you want, and it will go find the answer for you. Hey, when do I get paid in July? It'll go find your paydays and tell you. If my wife gets pregnant, how much paternity leave do I get? It'll you can go find those answers yourself, But who wants to flip through the manual or even remember where on SharePoint we store the manual? They just have to literally go ask the question. So anyway, we built 4 or 5 of those use cases, and then that's how we got people excited. And then they came back to us with more use cases. Essentially, we have more use cases now than we can actually develop.
So like, you run a large MSP. You're definitely a busy guy. I'm sure there's lots of people out in the universe and maybe on this call too who want to do exactly what you're saying, but at the same time they also want to, finish their PSA migration. They want to, get everyone off of whatever server, switch all the whatever other company initiatives there are. Do you have any advice or maybe reflection of your own on how you prioritize adopting AI internally and getting your whole team on board over, I'm sure, the many other projects that you might have had on your plate over the past year or in conjunction with?
Question. I don't have a playbook for that per se, Jimmy, but I will just tell you how we've done it. We don't beat on people to use AI. We've given them all access to the tool. And so my first question to usually when somebody comes to me with a problem, a challenge, hey, we've got, our bandwidth issue on our workload, is I ask them, hey, are you utilizing AI for that? Hey, when you have to write that response, that management response for that banking audit, are you starting with a blank sheet of paper or are you starting with Hatz? And so we continue to push people, hey, are you trying this tool? Because I literally use AI every day, and I may be a unicorn, but I think I'm becoming less and less of one. I mean, my mother uses this, for goodness sakes now. Perplexity is the greatest thing ever invented. She calls her Lexi, and she won't do anything in life that Lexi doesn't answer for her first. I created a monster with my 78-year-old mother, but with a question, hey, have you tried this? Hey, what about this? And then showing people how I use it. I mean, people will say, well, wait, what do you mean you used it to do management responses? And so I'll open up the Hatz tool and I'll go to one of my old chats and pull it up and I'll say, well, here's what I asked it and here's what it gave me. And then I copy that into Word and I use that as my starter kit. So instead of taking 2 hours to write this document for the bank, I took 45 minutes to write it. Which makes me more efficient and saves our bank money, right? Because they pay us by the hour. All these things. You can tell the story any way you want to tell it.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I think everybody has a good idea on you got everyone on board, you provide some immediate value, less like top down, let me tell you all how to use this, more like, hey, you can figure out how to use this yourself. For your customers, I appreciate you so much. You were one of our earliest adopters and, we've been adding, new customers consistently over time. Could you talk about like what initial adoption has been like, how you approach customers with it, getting them started, like how does that conversation go? Is it you? Is it your account managers maybe initially? And then now as it's like matured a bit and you've got a bunch of customers on the platform.
Yeah, so I'll take you through the journey. So it started out with me going to one of our banks. So I'm a speaker. I speak at these banking events all over the country. And you can't go to any event anywhere in the world for the last 18 months and not have 1, 2, or 100 speakers talking about AI, right? And what I learned pretty quickly, and Jimmy and I shared this over dinner one night about 6 months ago, is most of those speakers stand on stage and they sell futures. They tell you all the smoke and mirrors and all the things that AI is going to do or could do or would do. And at banking conferences, it's the same everywhere, but at banking conferences, that's probably one of the worst things you can do because they're highly regulated, highly risk averse, highly, they group think, hey, I'm the bank owner or CEO. I'm not doing anything that 5 other CEOs that I don't know already are doing this, right? They're very much.
Yeah.
So what I learned after going to several of these events was, man, there's some great speakers out here, but they're all selling futures. They're all talking about stuff that nobody's going to do at a community bank level until some regulator approves it, which may never happen. We're going to automate loan application. We're going to automate credit. We're going to automate all this stuff. And I'm like, you're not going to do any of that. So I changed my talk track. And so when they put me on stage, I stand up there and basically tell them the first 3 minutes, here's all the stuff everybody's telling you. And you see the nods of the heads. And I say, you're not going to do any of those things. But let me tell you what you can do. And then I'll show them 3 to 5 real things that they could go back to their office and do right now, whether it's writing a document, whether it's reviewing a regulation, whether it's loading a PDF of 178 pages from the FFIEC manual and asking relevant questions about it. Hey, this new manual came out in August. I know the board of directors needs to be informed about this. What should I tell my board in a single page memo? Those are the kind of things that we use it for, to be far more efficient. And you can go back to the bank and implement that today. So I went on stage and started telling the story that way, and immediately had banks coming up to me, whether they were current clients or prospects, saying, hey, that sounds really cool. How are you doing that? And so we got a couple of folks to try the Hatz tool, and we put Hatz out at a bank in Pennsylvania. Turned out that one of the guys that ended up using it happened to be Jimmy's friend from college, complete random. Or you might have even been roommates, I don't remember. But
roommate from college.
Yeah,
Yep,
roommate from college.
I've got eyes everywhere, Milton. Everywhere.
It's hilarious. Then a bank in Tennessee, several banks in Kentucky. And so we got all these folks on it. And then we did the same thing that we did internally. I would call those banks and say, hey, you've got 5 people on this. Let's have a powwow and let's find out what they're doing with it. And you find out that 3 people logged in once, played with it, and didn't log in again. But 2 people had done some amazing things. And then everybody starts to hear it. And then they're like, oh, well, can you get a license for Jane and Mark and Carrie? Because, well, and so it kind of just grew that way. And then JP and I just started talking and having regular conversations about, what this needs to look like. And so we just built up kind of I'm going to call it a catalog of use cases just for banks. And then we just started going to all of our banks one off and saying, hey, you've got to try this. You've got to try this. And then I'll kind of close with this, and you can ask your follow-up question about what we're doing next.
Yep.
JP and I have had this talk track, and essentially where I got to what we're about to talk about is I woke up and I said, hey, you know what? We're at a crossroads. Everybody in the world is talking about AI. Everybody in the world is at least dipped their toe in the water. Everybody knows what ChatGPT is. So if we don't go to our customers with an offering, e.g. Hatz, what's going to happen is one of 2 things. Either A, our client's going to call us up in March and say, hey, we just bought enterprise licenses for ChatGPT for our whole company. We need ImageQuest to help us install it because we're the MSP, right? And so now all of a sudden we're installing a solution and supporting a solution that we didn't sell. And the next customer is going to say, oh, we bought Anthropic. And the next customer is saying, oh, we like open source, so we got Meta. And we're going to end up supporting all these different things with no revenue because we didn't sell it. And then the second threat is some other MSP is going to go out to our client that's a really good client that we haven't talked about AI to yet. And they're going to get them all excited about this AI tool, whether it's Hatz or something else. And now we're going to be on the defensive and caught flat-footed. And so we made the decision that I think is Jimmy's next question, to literally go out and offer it to every ImageQuest customer. So we started that in January, and we basically put our customers into 2 buckets. So the really big customers, or the very special customers, because we all have special customers that needed a one-on-one meeting. We've set one-on-one meetings with them, and we do about a 45-minute demo with them. We take them through the Hatz tool, what we're doing with it. We show them use cases. We talk about security. I bring up the trust.hatz.ai page and show them the live controls. We kind of walk them through the journey and say, hey, and we'd love to put you on this platform and help you put together a small group inside your bank or your company to test this. And that's worked really well. And then the second thing we're doing, and the first one of these is next Thursday, is we're doing a webinar. Same thing. It's the exact same demo and the same talk track, but we're inviting all customers to it. So basically, we put all of our relationship managers have these invites. We're doing 3 webinars in the month of February, and we're inviting all of our customers to attend one of these luncheon webinars to learn about Hatz, and then raise their hand at the end if they want to hear more about it and want to get on a trial with us. And so our plan is we have 109 clients. Our plan is to have this offered to all 109 clients before the end of February.
Well, I guess I don't have to ask a follow-up question there.
Well, that was your follow-up.
You answered
That
that.
was the answer, right?
Yeah. Milton, I love it. Everything that you said to mirrors sort of everything that JP echoes every single time you talk to him, right? He says the same thing. He's like a broken record. I've been working with JP for a long time, and he finds, his thing to repeat over and over again, just keeps doing it. He's very good at that. Adopt internally, figure out how to use it, right? Learn, get smart on AI, set up with a couple customers, and then go big and start deploying it. And you've done exactly that. And I'm very grateful to be in a partnership with you. I'm throwing you a curveball here. We have my co-founder and good friend Aidan on too, founder of Scout Cybersecurity, co-founder of Hatz. He was in on the early days when it was an idea and a piece of paper, him and I writing back and forth. So Aidan, I wanted to introduce you in front of a live audience to Milton and give you a chance to ask any follow-up questions that I might have missed.
I love Milton.
How are you, Aidan?
Hey, Milton. I think there's a couple of things. If you think about, first of all, congratulations, which is like, on leading the way. I would say, when you think about when you started using AI yourself, what catalysts that you've seen when customers actually, there's the demo side of it where you demo to your customers, but someone you're really close with, if you can get someone to use Hatz as a platform, whether that's inside your MSP or inside a customer, what things have you seen really kind of the aha moment they've had?
I'll give you a very perfect example. And by the way, for the audience, this was not a setup. This just happens to be good timing. So I was in Stanford, Kentucky.
By the way, if it was a setup, I would totally have set it up too. By the way,
I was in Stanford, Kentucky, Monday and Tuesday of this week at one of our larger banking clients for a regularly scheduled on-site. We go there every other month for a full day of meetings. The chief risk officer at that bank is an older generation. He's older than I am. He's in his early 60s. And we had given him a Hatz license as part of this test group, and he had never logged into it. And he knew I was coming on site. So last week, when he and I were having a call on Wednesday morning, he said, "Hey, when you're here next week, could you sit down with me for 15 minutes and show me this Hatz tool so I can see why everybody's so excited about it?" And I said, "Absolutely." So I went to his office at 2:00 in the afternoon on Monday. And when I got there, he was logged in, and he wasn't logged into the right place. He was logged into the training page, the LMS, which was hilarious. And he's looking at this video, and he's like, I don't see how I'm supposed to use this. And I said, "Well, Keith," I said, "you're halfway there. You're on the training site. Leave that page up because we're going to come back to it. But let's go to iq.hatz.ai and let's log in." So we got him logged in there. And then I did. He's a very smart guy, former bank regulator. Now he's the chief risk officer at this bank for the last 18 years. And he said, "Well, what kind of things do you do with it?" And I said, "Well, Keith, let's think about this. What's the next policy you have to write for the board?" And he said, "Well, I got to work on Reg W because there's some Reg W changes this year." I said, "Okay." So we opened up the Hatz tool. It was on OpenAI 4.0, and so I just left it there for him, 4.0. I said, "Hey, let's not even change language models. Let's just use this one. It's out of the box." And I said, "Ask it a question that's relevant to you about writing a policy for Reg W." He goes, "Well, what do you mean ask it?" I said, "Just type it like pretend like there's a regulator sitting across the desk from you and type the question that you would ask the regulator." And he did exactly that. And of course, in seconds, it comes back and it gives him a framework. And so it's like this framework, 1, 3, 5, 7, whatever. And he's like, "Whoa." So he starts reading it, and he's like leaning up to the screen and reading it really close. He goes, "Okay, well," he goes, "this is a pretty good overview, but it needs to be more detailed." I said, "Okay, tell it that." He goes, "What do you mean tell it that?" I said, "You have to understand this tool has infinite patience. You cannot piss it off. Just continue to ask the question over and over again until you get what you want." And I said, so pick, for example, it was section 3. I said, "Tell it to expand on section 3 with more detail." So he did. And of course, it gives him a whole book on section 3. Oh, and he's like, "My gosh, that's too much." I said, "Okay, tell it that's too much. Tell it to meet it in the middle." And so we went back and forth with it. We played with it for probably 10 minutes. And at the end, he was like, "Wow." He goes, "Yeah, this is pretty cool." And so then he said, "Well, what if I want to compare this to the actual Reg W?" I said, "Okay, let's do that." So we went to, because we don't have live internet access, right? So we went and found the Reg W on the Federal Reserve website. There's a PDF. We downloaded the PDF. Went back to that same chat. And I said, "Hey, attach this PDF." Click the paperclip, attached it. I said, "Now ask it to compare what it wrote to what the regulation actually says and tell you if there are any discrepancies." And of course, we went back. So again, I'm not going to go through the whole rest of it, but I spent 45 minutes with him doing that. And when I left, he was like, "I can't believe I've lived for 25 years of my life without having this tool." And so that's exactly how we get people excited, Aidan. And it's just
it's not a surprise that you did that this week, because what Milton's on is like the journey that I think we've all been on working with AI. But I think I'm going to repeat so many great things that Milton said. I think there's a very large percentage of people who are talking about AI. And then there's a decent percentage that ask you a few questions like, is it going to take over the world or ruin the world? And but I would say the percentage that's actually executing is tiny. I think it's a really, really, really tiny, tiny, tiny number. I think the people who are using it as a consumer, like your mother, you mentioned Milton, is growing like crazy. And everybody presumes that because they've seen it and used it as a consumer, they understand how that's going to help them in their daily life and in their work. So I had a very good friend of mine. I don't have many friends like Jimmy does. He has all these college friends that I have to look up now that he really has college friends. I need to meet that person. But he was president of Tesla. And his name is John McNeil. He's an amazing guy. John's got a business in the MSP ecosystem as well. But when John was building Tesla, he had the unenviable task of trying to scale customer service. And there's nothing like an MSP having to deal with customer service with technicians and the type of support calls you get. And what he said was, he told me the story about, I said, how did you align everybody on to do that? He said, well, we came up with a very simple plan. And the plan was, he said, make sure they talk about us at dinner. So whatever we do for the customer, make sure they talk about us at the dinner table. And I think the secret here is, if people witness it or they see it and it's convenient for them, they will talk about it at dinner when they go home. And I think for MSPs to be in a position where they're delivering an experience now to a customer where they want to talk about it at the dinner table, that's a big paradigm shift. I don't know when the last time a password reset came up at dinner in my house.
Yeah.
So I think what's changed is the importance of the MSP relationship in a business has now gone from something that supported the business that can be the business.
Yeah.
So, and I think every CEO cares about it. Every owner cares about it. And even if they're afraid to admit that, MSPs now have a responsibility to make sure they show their customers that they're leading the way. And the way to do that is exactly to do what you did, Milton, which is just have them use it themselves. So like, there's a huge difference between show and witness. So like, if I show somebody how I'm going to swim versus I'm swimming, there's a big difference for a person who can't really swim. So when you're in the water and how it feels, and then as soon as that witness piece happens and you start to see something that can change your life, all of a sudden you're telling everybody and you're showing everybody. So we now have a way where MSPs can show their customers just how capable they are. And they can follow that where the customers are going to feel cool. They're going to want to go home and show their family, show their friends, and show everybody else. And I just think that's a huge paradigm shift. Now, for the MSPs from a business perspective, it's Jaws. So what Jaws is when you're growing your top line and your bottom line at the same time. I love Jaws. I love Jaws for MSPs. And I think this is another way that I think there's going to be, for all the MSPs that we've known over the years, there's thousands of them. I'm lucky to know hundreds of them personally that we've worked with. They were always suffering with capacity. And the more they grew, the worse their life got. And finally, you have a platform with AI that an MSP's life can improve while their Jaws grows, right? So while the Jaws grows. So where you can get to be home having dinner with your family and not just be at work as the business grows with all the complexity that comes with that. So the reason, when Jimmy and I started this, one is I would start a deli with Jimmy, even though he's vegan. There's nothing I wouldn't do with Jimmy, but particularly when he wanted to go do this, I was like, yeah, I'm in. And I happen to be spending my whole life is in this area anyway, in AI and in energy and around it. I just thought, and we both thought, I think for the first time, that there's a chance an MSP's life could get better. And up until now, it was really like, if you think about what happened to every MSP, I remember during COVID and cyber, and it's a very intense business and you have a lot of responsibility, particularly when you're working in banking or in healthcare or in energy, these critical sectors. And I think that doesn't get talked about enough. And I'm just kind of happy and excited that we finally have something that's like, MSPs get to be magicians now. Like, it's like what they deserve. So I think there's not more for me to say. I wanted to kind of connect a few of the dots with what Milton is already doing. And I think if I was to just give you one thing, that anyone who's on the call to do one thing, is get it into the hands of all of your customers, because there is no way you will think about what they want to use it. I have businesses that I own. I was on a call with Mark this morning with a business that we have, and I was like saying, and by the time I was 2 minutes into the call, I got off because they were already on so far and things that I couldn't have imagined in a million years. It's all about getting them to witness it and their fingers on the keyboard themselves, so they feel that power. And I think that is going to be kind of like a huge unlock. And if there's ways we as Hatz can help you do that, I think that's what we want to do. Jimmy, do you think I covered the main things there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's bringing me back thinking about it and our conversations over the
Yeah.
past, 2 years. Um, but this has been wonderful. I thank you, Milton. Thank you, Aidan. I'd like to pivot over to JP here and Mark, and then I'll get back into product updates right afterwards.
Perfect. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Milton. Thank you, Aidan. Jimmy, we'll pick up with just a brief partner resource update, and then hand it over to JP. So some exciting things. You can now log into the platform, the training portal from the platform. You see this little video here. There's a learning portal button. Jimmy will touch on this in a little bit, but there are ways to turn this off if you want to hide this from any of your customers. So that's now, Milton, with having someone log into the training and not realize it's not the same as the platform. You just go to the platform now, and you can get to training directly from there. Speaking of training, we updated our landing page, so it feels more like Hatz AI when you first log into the training portal. Now it's Hatz AI everywhere, and we have 2 new courses: Prompt Engineering 1, Ideation and Impact, and Prompt Engineering 2, Prompts and User Inputs. If you previously took what we called Prompt Engineering or Prompt Engineering 1, bear with me, that's now Prompt Engineering 2. That's now the prompts and user inputs. It's updated to reflect the new workshop, the new features, and the way that the prompts are built there. Prompt Engineering 1, Ideation and Impact, is an important first step that we didn't really cover in the old version of the course. This is, I just recommend to take it. It's where you can go to learn how and why that first step of ideation is important, so that in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, you can look back and see the impact that a certain use case has had in your organization. AI Sales 101 is coming soon. On February 3rd, we'll be launching that one. That'll be for MSPs to take. JP will touch on this in a little bit, but we're really excited to have this one coming out next week, really. There was a question in the chat about prompt engineering. As a reminder, we have office hours Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern and Fridays at noon Eastern. And we also have our Discord. If you ever have any questions or want to show off an app that you built, great place to do it. The help at hatz.ai, we want to start directing support questions that you have, any sort of if you find a bug, if something's not working for you the way you expect, if you can start directing questions to help at hatz.ai, that shows up to pretty much everyone at Hatz. So I'll try to get back to as many individual emails as I can, but you will get more eyes on it sooner if you CC or email directly help at hatz.ai. And then we have our blog. We teased this a little bit last time. Our first 2 articles are out, MSP 3.0 and Driving Towards 10 Hours. Highly recommend going to check that out, and we'll be filling that out with more articles over the coming weeks. And I'll hand it over to JP.
That's great, Mark. Well done. Thank you. And I'll bring people. I think there's a lot of different people on this call, some that are further on the journey. Milton, it was really great hearing everything that you had covered earlier. And it is really once in a generation opportunity for MSPs. And that AI revolution is here. But I think one of the things we want to probably maybe just highlight for everyone on the call, that if you want to get into this business, it's critical to act now. And as your clients are exploring AI, if you don't meet those needs at some level, somebody else will, as Milton had highlighted. And that's why it's so important starting now. And that window to establish credibility in AI is open, and it won't stay open forever. But acting now allows us to develop that internally competency, refining your offerings. I'll take it through some of that now, and growing that demand for business. And every business leader is eager to adopt AI solutions, and the momentum is everywhere. So the sooner we start together, the stronger the position. And some have started last year. Others are beginning now, and that's okay. But businesses are looking for that trusted partner, and MSPs have always been in the in the background, helping them go from on-prem to cloud or not secure to being secure. And AI is going to be exactly that. And as Jimmy alluded to, like we have honed down a playbook now that thankfully from our MSP partners that we worked with last year, an adoption program that works. So I'm going to take it through that a little bit now, Mark. If you want to go to the next slide for a second. So this is it, and it's very familiar for some. This is the playbook. Starting at 12 o'clock, if you decide you want to get into that business, you deploy. So you can deploy Hatz very easy. I can talk about this in a moment. We have a starter pack deployed internally. Let your team use it, learn, and understand a little bit more about AI. Once that's done, we can begin selling it. So if you go to the next slide, I've broken that out a little bit, Mark. I think it's good to see the visuals where it's very, very easy just to turn on a starter pack today. We have trials available to meet all of your needs. What we typically see working, you can see at the bottom, is enrolling all of your team, as Milton just talked about, and perhaps focus on secure chat, or maybe one or two of those apps that we mentioned that are more universal. But the critical thing we're beginning to see is education is key for everybody, whether you're an MSP or an end customer. So Mark leads the charge. We're going to spend a lot of time on this year and develop it out even further, but an AI adoption certification. So level 1 to level 4. Level 1 and 2 are critical for anybody getting started. And it helps drive towards 10 hours usage. And once we get to that point, you're ready. Like, you're ready to sell. We definitely want to focus on the first 5 customers, but as Milton talked about, it can quickly expand across all customers. And next slide, guess what? That if you go back one, Mark, the playbook for your end customer is the very same. So once you get started, you can begin setting up a starter pack for your end customers, enroll them in the platform, enroll them in the education, and driving towards that 10 hours. And then, as Aidan and Jimmy talked about earlier, very, very quickly, we're going to see that expansion. So they'll start at one point, but the thirst and eagerness to get more AI adopted in their business will mean you have a serious expansion. And that Jaws piece will definitely, I'd love that analogy, we'll work on that. Next slide, please, Mark. I think the North Star is 10 hours for every human. If we get to 10 hours usage or more in the first month or so, it becomes a co-intelligence. Whether that's, my mother-in-law, or whether it's a business leader, or whether it's anybody within an MSP, we want to make sure we can help everyone grow and use it for 10 hours. And the level 1 to 4 really helps people think about it in their workday. And very, very much encourage everyone to go through that program. Next slide, please, Mark. Within the application, there are lots of different apps. There's one that we've built particularly for MSPs, only visible to MSPs, by the way, that has ability to develop proposals describing the service. It can actually go through some of the pricing components as well. Next slide, please, Mark. So Jimmy, I'm going to hand over to you shortly, but I want to really, and you can mention this later as well, I want to sort of leave a very clear, ask for everyone on the call, wherever you are in the journey. If you're just getting started, deploy internally. If you're already started, and you've gone through some of your team have gone through level 1 and 2, I'd highly encourage take packages. They're now available in the platform, so you can go in. Don't mind some of the pricing you see there. Everyone has different tiers. You'll be able to go in, take a starter pack, for example, for a customer, and then an intro, and just let them have access to it. Enroll them, let them get started. You can link with me directly, and we can make sure that we have a trial associated to some of them. Where, for example, we want to work in the first 30-day trial or things like that. But highly encourage, just get ahead of this now, and we have everything automated in the background to help you get those packages directly in the system. So we're excited about that. And with that, and I'm delighted we left a bit of time here, Jimmy, because I'm going to tee you up a little bit here. I'm really excited for you to go through this product roadmap, Jimmy. Also, we'll go back through some of the web chat and answer any questions. But please, Mark and I will be monitoring that chat. If anyone has any questions, want us to ask Jimmy, just put them in here, and we'll get a little bit of a Q&A going if we have a bit of time at the end, Jimmy, if that's okay.
Great. Sounds good. All right. So I want to start out by covering sort of like some of the updates that we've done over the past month. The first is we did get our SOC 2 Type 2. We passed our audit. We do have that available via, if you just have to go through an MBA, and we can send over the Type 2 report. If you already have one and you need the updated report after the Type 1, we can get that over to you as well. We also did get a SOC 3 report as well. So we have that available too. So some of the updates, and I'll go through them pretty quickly. Mark, if you want to go. We added, since the last time we spoke, we added vision support, so image support in the chat. So across all the different LLMs that it's supported, you can now upload images. It's available in chat and the workshop. Let's keep going here. Oh yeah, sorry. We added OCR support, so I know a couple people had questions about that. We also, just generally speaking, we refactored a lot of the way that we do files, adding more support. Like there's some problems with certain PDFs and things like that. So documents are now more widely supported. I do monitor errors on that, and we've made a lot of progress there in the past couple months. The new thing, so our new app builder experience. So since we last spoke, we moved everyone over to the new platform. I think a lot of people were on Next for a while, but we've moved the customer dashboards over. It's not opt-in anymore. Everything's switched over. Now you can do things like Control Z. You can upload multiple permanent files, make a little file bank. You can reuse inputs across multiple places. We have prompt templates. You can set a default LLM. A lot of that has been updated, and this was like the foundation that we had to do in order to move to workflows and add updates and more features to this a lot quicker. So as you can see here, our release cadence is improving, where we're releasing more features more often, more impactful, thanks to a lot of that work that was done. We also added drafting and autosave. So currently, if you if you have a published app and you start editing it, it'll now autosave. We will add in the ability for drafting for unpublished. But to get started, we wanted to start with drafting, autosave, reverting, that kind of thing. Versioning, all that stuff is on the radar, and we're going to be incrementally releasing more features towards that. We have our API is released, so it's in preview right now, and you can request an API key from us. We'll probably add the ability for everyone to generate their own API keys and use it without interaction with us about next week. But we did have some early preview customers who've been testing it, and if you would like access today or soon, just talk to Mark or myself, or email help@hatz.ai, and we can get an API key provision for you and securely shared with you. And then we also, JP talked about it a little bit, but we moved off of our old licensing model of per user into packages, a lot simpler, a lot easier to deploy to people. And credit tracking is all in the system now. So you can see we added an adoption dashboard, so you can see when people are logging in. You can see how much usage they've had. You can see how much usage a company has had. All that's available in the tenant page on the admin. If you go to the adoption dashboard there. So, those were some of the highlights of the past month or so. I think like what's next, I want to talk about like this is more near term. I think like February, maybe a bit into March. We're adding private apps or automations. So basically the ability so they're not shared with the entire team, so you can keep them just to yourself. We're also rewriting our whole site, so our whole product, so it's mobile compatible. You'll start seeing pages like the chat page, like super important ones, quicker than others. That's just, the next couple days and weeks here, we are releasing a lot of those. And also now that our API is available, we'll be releasing a standard Zapier integration. So you can just go in and basically plug in your API key there. We're going to add new LLMs to O1, O1 Mini, and DeepSeek. I put a star next to it. We're evaluating it. The simplest way and how a lot of people are just doing it right now is they're going directly to DeepSeek. And we chose not to do that, at least for the time being. We weren't comfortable with all the data governance yet. We just want to learn more before jumping right onto it. But should we decide, we're evaluating too if we want to host our own version, or if we can find one of our existing cloud providers where we can get it from, then we will turn it on as well. So more will be revealed there. Multi-step workflows is probably the biggest change that's coming very soon. So basically the ability to take one chat or one app and put the output into another. You'll see initial triggers and automations and integrations with other things being like first like web browsing and things like that. And we will be accelerating that like mostly from March into Q2, where we're just going to be adding lots and lots and lots of new integrations there. The biggest integration that we're working on right now is Office 365. So we're evaluating everything from just SharePoint to SharePoint calendars, Teams, blah 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 blah. Sort of everything available in the Graph API. So that is definitely something that we are working on. And then, dark mode. I personally have spent a lot of time working late at night. And now, I got a new desk set up and it's in my bedroom with so my wife will be sleeping and I'll have the lights out and I'll be working and I'll be coding or whatever I'm working on, and flip over and I've experienced the same eye jolt. So in the process of redoing all of our mobile compatibility, we're also setting everything up for dark mode, being able to turn that on and off. I have it sort of like the list here is sort of like in the general order of where I think that they'll land in terms of like into the product. And I have it a little later because we need to get sort of everything done and mobile compatible before we can flip dark mode on. But more on that coming soon. And then file library. So if you read our API docs, you'll see that you can actually store files and get an ID from it. And we actually make them indexable for store it in a vector format as embeddings. So that is actually available via API. You can upload, if you upload files via API, you can recall them and use them in different apps and chats and things like that. So that is like we've done the work to sort of build all that functionality, and now we are going to be integrating it into the rest of the product, so users can more easily store files across multiple apps, chats, etc., having like a knowledge base library. We have lots more that we're working on too. This is like the nearer stuff. Yeah, the 30 megabit byte size limit, that's per file. I saw Daniel ask. That's a per file size limit. So we're looking at increasing that too. 30 megabytes is pretty big for most documents. As a size limit, but we're looking at increasing that to a larger limit. It's a fun technical challenge, and my team's really excited about it. But yeah, we've got a lot. We're doing releases, every week, I'm excited for sort of everything to come and everything that's came already. But you can always, if you haven't already subscribed to our Candy board, which we track feature requests, we release change logs. When I do a change log, we'll go in and sort of update sort of like what features we've done, what's in progress, that sort of thing. So we definitely offer a lot of visibility to our partners on like what's coming and where we're at. But with that, I'll transition to whatever final slides, if we have one, or maybe it's just closing words. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, like 2024 for a lot of us was the year of experimentation, and 2025 is the year of action. So we're really excited. If you haven't gone and done any AI trainings yet, I encourage you to go ahead and do so. And if you're just getting started with a couple customers, reach out to JP or Mark if you need help. But just sit down, show people AI. You'd be surprised how many people are actually using AI in their business on a daily basis. It's less than you'd think, and we as tech people have a bias for thinking adoption is more widespread than it actually is.
Jimmy, I had one question, and I know others might want to jump in. Can you help? And it's a bit of a leading question for you, but when you think about chaining apps, and we've seen that, can you shed a little bit of light about how you're thinking about, like, so there's a word called AI agents that is coming up, and how should people be thinking about that in terms of where they're what they need to do now and preparing for the future with AI agents? Like, so just paint, yeah.
Yeah, great question. So how we think about it is workflows are a precursor to agentic employees or digital employees. And what I mean by that is, currently, if you want to automate a complex multi-step function, you have to figure out every sort of single end node to actually do that. With AI agents, it becomes possible that you don't need to, figure out the exact steps and map each case, because the AI can sort of do that. So where we're going with it is we're spending a lot of time engineering our apps, which are workflows or automations, and then soon after those releases begin coming out, you'll see the ability to create agents and giving them access to those different workflows. So if you think about it, the way we think about it is agents should be able to communicate over chat, email, phone, API, webhook. And then they should be able to make decisions on what tools to use and what tools to run. So we are going to enable existing workflows as tools that can be called on by different agents. And that's sort of like our next 6 months that we're working on at Hatz. I've sort of shared more roadmap on the first three, but that's where we're going. The next two, I should say.
Jimmy, we had a question in the Q&A about some quick talking points for objection handling, about Hatz AI versus other AI tools that are out there. Wanted to know if you could speak to those quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of different things that you cover. The one of which is like having one place to access all the different AI models, I think is important. It's constantly jumping what's ahead, what's behind, what's the best one, what's the next best one. Two is having something where you can secure the data for everyone and keep it in a single place. And then, I think three is a holistic platform. Where we're going and what we're doing is we're taking the best bits and pieces of um, AI from different areas and integrating it into one single place. I think that is the longer term strategy. So you may get like a big provider may get a certain feature first or faster or something like that, but when it comes down to usable business use cases, that's where we're focused on, and we're doing the vetting to make sure that can happen. So, I think that it's important to lead with holistic business sort of conversation with, how do we get everyone in the company using it? How do we get productivity over time? And how do we keep risk and security in mind while doing that? And then from an MSP perspective, how can you uh, support that? I see Dan. I'm laughing, looking at Daniel's messages coming in.
Well, Jimmy, if
He
I
wants to.
may, I'll
Sure.
piggyback on that. So, I don't run into a lot where somebody says, "Hey, we're thinking about buying ChatGPT Enterprise or Grok Enterprise or Anthropic." I would say for most of us, the one you're going to run up against mostly is Copilot, right? That's going to be the biggest, I want to say, competitor. And I don't see Copilot really as a competitor right now. I see it as complementary. Copilot has its place if you are a Microsoft-centric shop, and we have a lot of clients, and we're one. We all have Copilot licenses at ImageQuest. We also all have Hatz licenses. And they have their different use cases. Like I can go to Copilot and say, "Hey, I've got a meeting with Jimmy tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Can you write an agenda for me?" Hatz can't do that right now. So I use it for those features. Or, hey, summarize my emails from last night so I make sure I didn't miss anything important. Whatever you want to use it for. But I don't use Copilot to go draft documents and create my emails and things like that, because I don't feel like it's very good at that. And I feel like the Hatz tool, giving us the different LLMs to choose from, is a far more useful tool for those type of things and building workflows and other things. So I see them as complementary, not competitive.
This is why I should just have Milton just answer all my questions.
Well, about that, but
All right. I think that's a great way to end here. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you all on the next partner roundtable.